So I usually give a really long, convoluted history lesson. That's kind of like the short version is sex work has been women's number one, like our first and foremost job, but also the way that we've stayed safe throughout generations and centuries. Whereas men go to war and they have the strength to do that, women back in like, let's say the 1600s or even like BC era had to rely on the gifts that we have, which is like seduction and kind of like mental manipulation, and it's more of like a passive calling, if that makes sense.
Okay.
But it's been like inherent in our bones and in our primal attitude since like the beginning of time, because that's how we can stay safe, is like if we can seduce this giant man who will then protect us, like I'm good to go, man. And then you have major players like Cleopatra or like the first geisha, women in the UK or in Europe, and that's where Europe in the medieval times is where you see the first split between church and state kind of, or church and women situation. So you have like the witching era where when Catholicism and Christianity became really big in Europe and like the Crusades happened and everything, that kind of time period, a lot of church leaders would attach themselves to politicians to get laws made in the way that they wanted the world to work. And women escorts specifically were doing more or less the same thing. Like if I'm a sex worker or an escort and you're coming to me and I'm like your favorite person to fuck, like I'm going to be a lot more convincing.
Well, maybe you should change X, Y, and Z law.
Yeah,
and
because
think about it while
that would be so
dick.
attractive, you know? Like I'd be so turned on if women had the right to vote or whatever.
Yeah.
Not the right time period, but that kind of idea. And so the church basically went against women. Because it was their main rival in terms of politics and getting what they wanted. And then it was also this one. This is really well thought out in terms of like witches specifically. Witches, Sluts, and Feminists is a book that I read, and so it's really detailed in terms of like how witch practice is primarily against attractive women, or like witch hunts are against attractive women who won't sleep with men or old women who are no longer desired by men.
Ooh.
And a lot of that comes from this very, I don't remember his name, I'll have to look it up and I'll send you all the info for all the people online.
Yeah, we need links and stuff,
But I guess this one major player in the papacy wrote his own version of like demons and ways to avoid them, more or less. And it was just all about how much women were ruining his life. And it's very erotic, and it's basically the first BDSM book that's ever been written, if you look at it that way. But that's the type of shit that he was writing, is like ways to torture women
Yikes.
to get off, and ways like for him to get off. And
wait, and what was his role in life? What was
he
his
was
position?
he was very high in the papacy, so he was like a bishop, super religious and very high up there. And he had association, I believe, with a few different countries in terms of political power. So once that book came out, even though the church itself denied the book, it was so popular within like just the general communities, that it became kind of a way of thinking. And with that, then you have Puritans coming over to America specifically. So a lot of my knowledge that I've looked up is primarily American based. So then Puritans came over and brought those same ideas with them. And so anytime there was some type of sexual aggression, you, as a woman, if you're blamed for something, you can either say that the devil has corrupted you, or you could say that you're totally fine and this person's a liar, but because he's a man and you're a woman, you're less likely to be believed, based off of everything that's already been set in place for millennia and generations and centuries and all that jazz. And so it's just kind of like this constant downward spiral. And then from there, the last question that I usually, and so I explain all of this, and then we have the speakeasy times. I know it's really long. Usually this is an in-person question. Otherwise, I have like a note that's like a shorthand version that's just on my phone for everyone.
Oh my God,
and I
amazing.
just copy and paste it because this question comes up a lot.
Okay.
Then you have like the speakeasies and how burlesque dancers were part of like sideshow acts and everything and all of that. And then burlesque dancers stayed in speakeasies, and that's kind of how strip clubs became a thing.
Yes and no. Yeah.
Yes and
it's
no.
part of it. Yeah.
Super generalized version to make a point.
Okay.
Please look up your own information. There's so
Yeah,
much.
go read books.
There's
yeah.
so much. And then you get to the point where it's like, okay, so present day, what made you want to pole dance? And they're like, blah, 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 blah. And it's never, I saw this dude on a wooden pole doing flips that I'll never do in my entire life. It's, that woman was amazing.
Yeah.
That dancer was incredible.
Well, they could have seen Kenneth Cow.
Yeah, but even
he's an
now,
Asian man that's on the pole, and he's incredible. They could have seen him.
It's true, but he's creating a lot of his combos are from natural movement and ballistic environment and science-based.
I'm
and
on
stuff.
Team Jordan right now. Let me just be clear. I'm just saying.
No, I know, but I get that. I get those a lot. Or like, what about Dimitri? And it's like, yeah, but at this point in the pole world, we've created the ground, but the first pole dancers were strippers, 100% forever and ever. There's a difference between Chinese pole and the Indian pole because women were never allowed to do that. And so even if you had seen that, there's no way you would be allowed to enter those worlds in the way that they were before pole dancing existed.
Yeah, but this goes back to whorephobia.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it's like, well, I need this activity that I'm enjoying to have been derived from athletic men because I can't be associated with doing anything that in the past or current situation that sex workers do because I'm that whorephobic that I can't even admit that those whores have done the thing that I'm doing now.
Yep, agreed.
It's men. Chinese and Indian men.
And a lot of times now, too, like we have so many different movement styles because we have so many different people from so many backgrounds of movement and of life coming into pole dancing and bringing those previous experiences with them. But without strippers and without sex workers, this wouldn't exist to begin with.
Well, I mean, we're trendsetters. Like, do you remember the time a few years ago when Steve Madden started making really, like, high platform type shoes? Like, that started to become a trend.
Yes. Clear stripper shoes are now on ASOS. For $200.
What the fuck,
They're
man?
4 fucking inches.
What the fuck? We buy those for $50 from Pleaser.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's insane.
So they're just like, you know what my friend Natalie Clark likes to call this? Culture vultures.
Mm-hmm.
They're just vulturing off of our culture.
Yep. My favorite is when people tell me that strippers don't have culture.
I just died. I'm dead.
Strippers aren't allowed to have culture because they're not a race.
I can't. Well, first of all, thank you for the history lesson.
Sorry, it's
long.
long.
No. Don't be sorry. It was great. That was great. And I want to read all these books.
I'll send you a ton of them.
Yeah. And can you send us like titles so we can put
list.
In the... Yeah.
Which is Sluts and Feminists. It's really short. It's a really great read. And the woman is like... She was actually at Jack the Stripper's show in Cheetahs last year, I think in June. Okay. Right before Jack did the first Soldiers of Pole event.
We did that in September of 2019.
Yes, last year.
Yeah,
which is almost June.
So yeah, so it would have been in September, and that was when Cheetahs was still Cheetahs.
Yep.
So really quick history lesson on Cheetahs, and we're going to be talking to some Cheetahs girls really soon so that they can tell the story, but I'll just give a quick synopsis here.
Old Cheetahs or new Cheetahs girls?
Old Cheetahs girls. Yeah, so Cheetahs one day decided that they just wanted to shut down and renovate for 2 weeks, and then they fired all of their dancers. And
then they got bought by someone else.
Well, no, they didn't. That is a lie. Oh. We'll get into that on the next episode. Yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions, a lot of false information.
Oh, I can't wait to listen.
Oh, yeah, we have all the details.
I love details.
Yeah. So yeah, that was really shitty for them. And so, I mean, you're not currently stripping in Los Angeles because why do you even need to? You're stripping on the Himalayan mountain somewhere. That's also, way cooler.
AB5 kind of ruined that for me, and I won't do it. So.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
So you have thoughts about AB5? Negative thoughts?
I have so many negative thoughts about AB5 and positive thoughts.
Why don't you let's dissect that? I'm interested because I haven't really had the chance to have it face to face with somebody who is anti AB5. So explain it.
So I'm anti AB5 only because it was clearly pushed through without any thought for all the different aspects and areas of companies and industries that it would affect. I think that in general, AB5 for the lawsuit that it came from was a needed thing for the reason of unionizing and not fucking over people who are working for you because you want to make an extra dollar. Like, take care of the people who work for you in the setting that's in the parameters that are set. So in the lawsuit, I agree with it.
So really quick, so just to be clear for anybody who doesn't know what lawsuit she's talking about in AB 5, so there was a case called Dynamics. It was a truck delivery company that, like, midway through their business, they decided to reclassify all of their workers as independent contractors, stripping away all of their rights and all of their government-funded, like, access to, like, those programs like workers' comp and disability. And then
healthcare, all of those things.
And so they took that away, and then the workers were like, no, fuck that. And then they basically went to court, and then the workers won. And then what it did is the government was like, oh, like, all of these people are misclassifying their workers and should be paying all this payroll tax and should be giving their workers rights. And then they created AB 5 to sort of back up that law to make it even more illegal for employers to misclassify their workers.
And so that's where a lot of my so I'm a Gemini. A lot of air signs on my chart. So I'm kind of split down the middle on AB 5 because I think it's important for sex workers to unionize. I think what Soldiers of Pole is doing is really important because the other side is now AB 5 has allowed a lot of strip clubs to run even more fucked up than they already were in terms of the money that they're taking and the way that they're charging us. Like, I've worked multiple sales jobs growing up, and I've never had to pay someone else a commission fee.
Yes, but you did even before AB 5. You paid.
Yes, exactly. Yes. But now it's a different way that they're doing it. So a lot of the clubs that I've worked at just similarly after, and then I think 2 or 3 times. So I'm not super versed in it because after 3 negative experiences, like, fuck that shit.
Right.
But like, they're taking the first 4 lap dances just to go straight to your minimum wage.
I know, they're making you lap dance for free. Yes.
It's stupid.
Yes, it's sex slave work. Do you understand that they're breaking the law?
Yes, that's why I'm angry because, like, this I don't appreciate the fact that there are so many barriers for women in our community and men in our community to unionize and get the rights that we deserve. Whereas before, at least there was a mutual understanding that, like, I'm coming in, I'm paying to be here, and I'm leaving with what I make for the most part.
Yeah,